Update 3, my sister's boyfriend is interested in my 13-year-old son. It turns out that my sister's boyfriend David was not on the run. I thought he would be, considering that I discovered that he has been nutting in my son's clothes secretly at night, but I was wrong. He holed up at his parents' house, and is still currently there. My sister Sarah informed me that due to my accusations, David had a mental health crisis. She hopes I'm happy with myself, and she feels the need to stay with him for support. His entire family is infuriated with me. After I went to the police, my sister made the decision to kick me out of her home. I saw it coming a mile away, so I'm not too upset by it. I just wish she didn't feel such fierce loyalty to him and his family. David's behavior got so much worse during this mental health crisis. The harassment escalated to stalking, under the guise of wanting to clear the air. He showed up to Roman's baseball game that was held at a different school to try and speak with him. That means he found his schedule, the exact time he was playing, and the address of that school. Found the motel we'd been staying at. Created 3 other Instagram profiles to message him about how this is all a misunderstanding, how much he misses him, etc. Some of these messages were awful. Things like don't let other people make decisions for you, and you're old enough to decide who should be in your life and who shouldn't. Paragraphs and paragraphs of him pouring his heart out to my son, and begging him not to tell me that he's been reaching out. This harassment has left my son completely disillusioned. After screenshotting everything, I asked him not to read the messages anymore and to just delete them. The day David found our motel was one of the most traumatic moments of my life. I don't know how he found us. My sister knows I've been staying at a motel, but I never told her which one. On that day I needed to go to the corner store to grab something. My son was taking a shower and getting ready for bed, as he had school the next day. David had parked at the lot across the street, and I didn't see his car. He waited until I was almost at the store and my back was fully turned to go for our motel room door. It was obviously locked, so he started knocking, but by then I had already heard him and was running in his direction. I nearly blacked out from the fear and adrenaline, and it's hard to remember much. I recall that he didn't seem angry, he just had this miserable, panicked look in his eyes. He really did look like someone who was going through a mental health crisis. I told him I was calling the police and that he needed to leave. He said that he was entitled to a conversation with me, but he ran off once he saw me dialing 911. He knew I wasn't in the room. Why did he essentially try to break in, where he knew my son was alone? I of course documented this incident with the police. Before this incident, when I went to the police for the first time, the police officer I spoke with sat me down and gave me the opportunity to talk about everything. How David was very close with Roman, what I caught him doing with his clothes, the messages, etc. I presented the evidence that I had as well. I showed the video footage and gave her the article of clothing I confiscated, as well as the text messages. She then told me she would contact the district attorney, which she did soon after. I was interviewed again by a detective, and a couple days later, they called David in for an interview. By then, the stalking had begun. During my second interview, I showed him the new messages David sent, and told him about how David showed up to the school and the motel. I don't know what they asked David during his interview, but I can imagine that he denied everything and spun up a web of lies to try and make me look crazy. A detective interviewed my son as well. This is what worried me the most, and I insisted that if they didn't have to do it, I'd rather they didn't question him at all. But they said it would help build a stronger case, and I trust them. I was told I had to be there during his interview. Roman only knows about the stalking and harassment, but he has no idea about what David did with his clothes, and I want to keep it that way for as long as I can. I personally asked the detective not to bring it up. I'd just like to shield him from it all. They asked my son about the messages and the stalking, as well as their relationship. When asked about any physical contact they had, Roman brought something up that he didn't initially tell me about. In terms of the case, they are now requesting a warrant of arrest with the clerk of the court. David could end up getting up to 5 years in prison, maybe even more since a minor is involved. So that's where I'm at right now, waiting for the clerk's decision. The waiting game is stressful, but I'm trying to focus on the positives as much as I can. After the interviews, all of David's harassment stopped. I also filed a petition for a protective order after the motel incident. I've been feeling paranoid and having a lot of anxiety lately. Always looking over my shoulder, flinching when I see a stranger who looks like him, etc. I'm entitled to a conversation with you, he said when he tried to break into my motel room, but I don't believe him. I think David believes he's entitled to unrestrained access to my child due to their prior relationship. The entitlement is what scares me the most, that someone can just take something because they feel like it belongs to them. I'm scared to go anywhere with my kid. The biggest drawback is that all of this has significantly disturbed our quality of life. I know that my kid is putting on a brave face, but he's not doing well. It's getting to him, and I knew it would, but actually seeing this siphon his happiness away is gut-wrenching. He used to eat a ton but he hasn't been finishing his food lately.